LISC and other organizations did a report showing that Cincinnati is lacking about 25,000 units of affordable housing. And by affordable housing, I mean you're not paying more than a third of your income for housing. You're paying more than a third of your income for mortgage or rent and utilities. You're not in affordable housing. And so we looked at that income level, 60% or lower, because that's where the big gap is. There's some gaps a little higher, maybe the 80%, and so we do some of that as well. But the huge gap, and this is what the Greater Cincinnati Coalition for Homelessness will tell us, is that it's that 60% and lower where it's very, very difficult to find affordable housing. And so the trust fund was established. Not a lot of money was in, about, as I understand, less than $2,000. And so that kind of stayed for a few years until, you know, organizations like the Greater Cincinnati Homeless Coalition and Home and LISC said, you know, we need some money to encourage developers to build affordable housing, because when you build affordable housing, it costs about the same as market rate housing to build. I mean, the construction costs, you know, the utilities, the plant, all that stuff, all that is the same. It's just that you're going to get less money back for it. And so there was no incentive really for developers to say, you know, we're going to build affordable housing and, you know, and lose money. So the point is, how do we subsidize it so that there's an incentive there for developers to say, look, we're going to build affordable housing, and how do we afford building that? So that's what the Affordable Housing Trust Fund was for. But at less than $2,000, that's nothing. And so, so this slide shows you, and we don't call it the Affordable Housing Trust Fund anymore. We call it the Affordable Housing Leverage Fund. It's really several funds put together. But you see, some of it is public, some of it is private, and altogether, there's about $130 million now at different levels. So that's important to see, that now we actually have money. Some of the money, our priority in council, let's see if I have that slide I was trying to show. Oh, this shows you, council passed a motion just saying that these are our, you know, our priority is really, you know, 60% and lower. And so we want to make, it doesn't mean that has to be true. At one point, several of us were saying, let's take, you know, we had like, I think 5 million left over in the carryover budget one year. We said, let's just put that aside and say that has to be targeted to 60% area median income or lower. But council didn't vote for that because they said sometimes builders will say, well, we want to do a mixture of, you know, market rent or 80% and 30%. And if you say it has to be only 60%, then they can't afford to do the 30%. So we lost the vote on that, but council did say these are our priorities, that we really want to look at the 60% or lower area median income. That's our big target. And so how is that going? This slide, and this is from this was done about 3 weeks ago, this presentation by the Cincinnati Development Fund, which houses our Affordable Housing Leverage Fund. So this shows the total investment. But this slide is kind of confusing. Let me go to the next one that really gives the numbers. So in the last 2 years, so from 2022 to 2024, the Affordable Housing Leverage Fund helped to create 1,430 units, which is 715 units a year, which is really 3 times what we've done before. And we do have a city dashboard where you can go in and see how the funds are being spent and what income level, because that's been a real concern. Are we really building more affordable housing or just more housing? And we need both, but we want to make sure that we don't leave out affordable housing because, and we're going to talk about homelessness in a minute. We know that that's a big issue. And so this slide, wait, let me go down to this one, really tells you by area median income level. So these are the units. So the 1,803 units total over the last 2 years, between September 2022 and September 2024, 85% of them have been for the 60% area median income or less. So you look at that, and those units that were at 30% area median income, which is really low, that means that for a family of four, you have, you know, at most like 30 something, a little over $30,000 a year for a family of four. So that's very low, as you know, like 159 units for that. And then with the 31 to 50%, we've built 399 units, and then with 51 to 60%, 971 units. And then 61% to 80%, 274 units.
And on that 30% AMI, that's how much rent is charged by the
That's-
builders?
No, that's the income of the people who are living, who can afford to live there.
Okay, so is it supplemented then?
Right, some of it is, but we'd have to, and I didn't bring a slide about the rent. But the rent is supposed to be targeted for these income levels. So the rent cannot be more than a third of their
It
income.
would be $500 or $1,000 maybe, or something like that. Well, we don't know, but it would be,
Yeah,
it would be low enough.
Yeah, 1,000 would be high if you're making 30,000 or less a year for a family of four, but we'd have to look. There actually is information about what income levels, and not just that, they'll say, the information will say, you know, nurses and teachers can afford this, or, you know, people working, if you have a job in a fast food restaurant, you know, they kind of do it like that so that you kind of get an understanding about who's making what level. And I'm sorry, I don't have the rent amount.
But who loses
we
the
can-
money? So does the builder?
So the builder builds this, and then, so they're getting credits for this, they're getting tax abatements, and some are getting low income housing tax credits, and that's like a whole nother discussion. But they're required to build, to rent at this amount, so that 159 of the units, and that's not a lot. And none of this is really a lot, because we need, you know, we're 25,000 units short, but it's increasing. So that's really the point. I can find the rent numbers for you though.
I don't, yeah.
So yeah, that's more information too, but I didn't mean to take you off of that, but that was just saying. So if you're building something, you're saying, so for all the units, the 1,803 units that we funded with the Affordable Housing Leverage Fund over those 2 years, 159 went to 30% area median income, or
Which is
lower.
not probably enough. Probably not enough, is it?
Not enough units?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Definitely
are-
not enough.
We have to step it up. The good news is it's 3 times as many units as we built before per year, but that's still not enough. So, and you know, and no one is saying, oh, you know, we're good. You know, as one of our council people, Victoria Parks will say, you know, we're not patting ourselves on the back because we know there's a lot more to be done. This is just saying we're going in the right direction, and if we could get there faster, that would be even better. So yeah, so you know, it's good news mixed with bad news. So now I'm gonna move on to the homelessness. This is another presentation that was given, I think last week. And so these agencies, Found House, and you guys know the Found House, Interfaith Housing Network, Bethany House, the YWCA and Strategies to End Homelessness, presented together, and they're called the Family Housing Partnership. And so they, the Family Housing Partnership founded in 2007, and these 4 agencies serve the region's large service network for homeless families in Hamilton County. And they have a coordinated approach. They also wanted to, they mentioned that their wraparound partners include St. Vincent de Paul, Lighthouse Youth Services, Free Store Food Bank, Cincinnati Public Schools, which is Project Connect, GCB, I forgot what that stands for. I'll have to find that. And Duke, that's when you have all these acronyms. GCB, does anybody know GCB? Okay. Duke Energy Community Action Agency, their PIP program. And let me say too that in terms of evictions, because that has a lot to do with homelessness, that the city has funded and increased the funds for people under eviction so that they can pay and not be evicted. Also, this is something the mayor, back when he was clerk of courts, really wanted, and started talking about this is that everybody under eviction should be represented by an attorney. And so the city now, gives money to legal aid to, they do represent those experiencing eviction, but they only had so many attorneys and so much to do that. So this increased their funding, so that everybody has a right to an attorney if they're facing eviction. Which helps a lot because, knowing how to maneuver in court, really makes a difference and has helped a lot of people stay in their homes. So. Now, what about the demand? So, say this is part of their presentation, demand creates a never-ending waiting list, and we were I was taken aback by the numbers, but 13% of all families who call the central access point CAP 381 SAFE, SAFE, or you can just call 211, but you can call for help. Only 13% actually were able to get help in 2024 because the space just wasn't there. And I remember a few people called me late at night and we started calling and it's really hard to find placement. One person, we ended up, I think, getting her a place out in Butler County. So, it's really difficult. And this, under shelter, it says only 38.2% of families in need of shelter received emergency shelter. That's another thing that's real difficult. And I was talking to a woman who's experiencing homelessness last week, about a week ago. On Sunday, she was out, I was at an event at Memorial Hall, and she had her dog with her, and she had a towel over her dog. It was a pretty big dog, and of course, we gave her some money to get dinner. And I said, where are you staying tonight? Are you going to a shelter? And she said she couldn't get a place in a shelter. I think she said she was gonna go and sleep in the garage. And so, we were looking in the car for blankets, we found some sweaters to get her. It was just horrible. It was just really heartbreaking. And let me just take a minute to, we are gonna applaud our warming shelter, the OTR Rec Center, who, took a lot of people in during the day, because that's another thing, when it's cold during the day, the shelters close early in the morning, and then people are out until the evening. They can go to the library, maybe some other places, but like on Sunday, for example, the library doesn't open until 1 o'clock. So the OTR Warming Center had to close one Sunday. And I'm telling you, Christ Church Cathedral, Dean Owen Thompson just stepped in, Drew Abbott, just a lot of people from this church, because we found out about it Friday afternoon. And we're like, okay, we have 200 people. And this was January 12th. It was very, very cold. And so this is on Friday, we're like, we have 200 people who are gonna be let out of the shelter, the one on Guest Street at, 6 o'clock, 7 in the morning, with nowhere to go until the library opens at 1 o'clock. It was really, really cold. And so, Dean Owen said, bring them here. And so they came here to Christ Church, at 6:37 in the morning. And actually, I think they came at 6 o'clock. Metro was great. Metro, did the shuttle buses for us and got them here. And I know Drew Abbott from this church was here, and he was getting set up, and they arrived early. And he said, well, just come on in. And then Boar's Head had been canceled the previous week. And so there was a lot of food in the fridge, like hams and all this. So he and a bunch of folks, I don't know if you guys were involved, but a bunch of folks from this church made sandwiches and coffee. And, Dean Owen said it was like loaves and fishes, like they were just out here, everybody they said, okay, the cupboards are bare now. We've made all the food, it was really amazing. And then, they were doing like trivia games and, all of this just to really, help out. And I just, I think the church, I just thank Christ Church Cathedral for that, because having to go out in the cold would just be, horrible. But that's what a lot of our population experiences. And so it just shows the need for more. And then I should tell you, I mentioned Project Connect for Cincinnati Public Schools. 10% of our CPS students are experiencing homelessness. And so that's like 3,600, maybe close to 4,000 kids. It's a lot. And when they say homelessness, they're not talking about couch surfing, like, oh, I got evicted, so I'm gonna go stay with my aunt. It's like, you really do not have a shelter. So you're out there, I mean, it's, we really do have an issue that, we have to step it up, and so. I really applaud these agencies that are helping, and some of them, like Bethany House, take in families, and they have wraparound services to really help the families move forward. And I think we definitely need more like that. We need more of that. Okay, and this slide is just, I'm seeing how's our time going, so I'm gonna give you all time to ask questions, but this is something you already know, that children bear the brunt of homelessness, and we kind of talked about that. It says sick and hungry, so family homelessness has a life-changing impact on children if not addressed. Children bear the brunt of homelessness. Homeless children are sick and hungry twice as often. They change schools 7 to 8 times per year. They're twice as likely to repeat a grade. They often get 1 to 2 years behind in school. They're diagnosed with twice the average rate of learning disabilities. And by the time children experiencing homelessness are 8 years old, 1 in 3 has a major mental health disorder. So we've got to break that cycle. And this, they also talked about some of the barriers to staying housed. For me to help with that. Try searching the Apple Watch. I'm sorry, that's my watch talking. Okay. Wasn't me. All right, that's AI for you, right? Like, wow. So families, some of the barriers that families face to staying housed. So it says barriers are the ability to work full-time or 2 jobs to afford housing because of daycare capacity. Daycare is super expensive. The high prevalence, 40% of children and adults with ability or health challenges. 50% of families require longer-term rental assistance. And then it talks about the availability of housing, multi-room rental units at the 30 to 50% AMI, area median income. We talked about that there. It's hard to find, and rents have gone up. Loss of longer-term rental assistance, but that's why the city put more money into that. So that there is the fund has continued so that people can still get rental assistance. And then it says the length of stay in shelters went from 45 days to 60 days, which limits how many families can be served over the year. So if families are staying longer in a shelter, then there's not room for more families to come in. And then they also talk about barriers to engaging families earlier. Sometimes families think that this is what their research has shown, that the financial issue is short term and it starts to snowball. So it's like, oh, I'm going to catch up next. I know I can catch up next month. I know I can catch up the month after. And then you find out you really can't catch up, and it just snowballs out of hand. And then another issue is that families sometimes are unaware that help is available. Sometimes people call our office and they'll say they're behind in their rent, or if they own a home, they're behind in their property taxes. We've got money for that. We have our office at a property tax fund, Home Save, where people in low and moderate income levels, because how property taxes went way up last year, which is kind of because of the state. We didn't have anything to do with it, neither did the county. Okay, Tara's telling me get moving, all right. But, so just to say, so the administration created for us the Home Safe program, and there's still money in that. When it gets depleted, we'll have to put more in, because we don't want, we want people to own a home, and we don't want you to lose a home once you get it. So we have money to help you with repairs, to help with code violations, and now to help with delinquent property taxes. Okay, so let me move to, so I'm gonna just real quickly talk about making connected communities better. Do you all remember the Connected Communities Ordinance? It's an ordinance that was passed back in June to increase density, so to relieve some of the restrictions, such as height variances, parking requirements, things like that, in business districts. And then also within a quarter mile of transit corridors. Some people loved it, some people hated it, but there was a lot of comment about it. It did pass city. Personally, I didn't vote for it, but there was a lot of a lot of discussion, and I should say the reason I didn't vote for it is not because I'm against density. Our business districts need density. We need people living there to shop there and keep our businesses thriving. But people brought up a lot of issues that I knew we hadn't addressed. And so, you know, I gave my whole steak thing, like it's like a steak, you know, it needs to be cooked. It's not quite ready yet. So I thought it wasn't ready yet, but, even though it passed, so we don't have to stop there. We can still get out here and start addressing some of these issues. So we've had Tara Powell actually is our project manager for Making Connected Communities Better. And so she helped organize these 5 groups, accessibility, affordable housing, environment, infrastructure, then they added internet to that, and also neighborhood look and feel. So, starting with neighborhood look and feel, you know, some folks were saying, look, we, like in North Avenue, for example, there, you know, there's old houses, and they're saying does connect communities mean you can just stick a box in the, you know, that was the fear, that you tear down like one of these old homes and build this kind of modern box in the middle, which ruins how your neighborhood looks. And so, you know, so that was one thing. Infrastructure. Do we really have the capacity? You know, these 100-year floods now happen every other year. You know, we've got floods going on now. Do we have the infrastructure, like our pipes and all of that, to really and to hold this density? What about the environment? Stormwater overflow is a big issue. Tearing down trees, what are we gonna do about that? Another thing, affordable housing. If we're gonna build, you know, really like incentivize our developers to get out there and build more, will they include some affordable housing? Now, some of this some of Connected Communities was based on work that was done in Minneapolis. And in Minneapolis, at first, they didn't require any affordable housing, and then they realized there wasn't enough affordable housing being included with the development, so they went back and made that a requirement. Mayor Ginther in Columbus is now requiring a part of the development to be affordable housing as well. And so this working group looked at that as well. And then accessibility. Now we talk about visitability, where, you know, you have, you know, your home, for example, someone in a wheelchair can get into it, they can get to the kitchen and living room and the bathroom, but, you know, maybe there's no bedroom because they're just visiting. But what about total accessibility, where someone can actually live there? And so they're looking at that as well. So last Saturday, these 5 working, they've been working for months, presented their PowerPoint, which I'll send to you all too. The next step is they meet with the administration to talk about these, and our legal department to make sure their policy proposals, you know, pass muster. And then they're going to go to various community council members and ask them to shepherd through whatever their passion is from these policies. But they've done really, really good work. And a lot of work. We had over 100 people who came to the Hamilton County Community Action Agency on Saturday, and also 225 views online. And I think 60 were there over 60 were there live streaming. So a lot of attention to it. And I should say these working groups were formed based on all of the public comment. We took notes on what everybody said. Okay, you're talking about your neighborhood look and feel, and I should say for that, what I should have pointed out, they're suggesting pattern books for the different neighborhoods, chosen by the neighborhood and developed by architects, many who have volunteered to actually help with this project. So, so that you'll hear more about that going forward. They will present in the Healthy Neighborhoods Committee probably late March, early April, after they've gone through the administration, work with the planning department, the environmental department, and the legal department to get ready to actually present it. But meanwhile, they did present to the public at the town hall, and just got a lot of good feedback, a lot of questions and comments, so that was good. Okay, and the final thing, I'm just gonna real quickly, I started by talking about building futures. You know, one thing is we do a lot of, you know, a lot of things that are important to do in terms of, you know, let's make sure that, you know, you've got property tax relief, that you've got money to prevent evictions. But we also want to look at long-term things, because our poverty rate in Cincinnati is something like 29%, which is pretty high. With Black Americans in Cincinnati, it's 39%. That's just too high. we're creating an office of opportunity to see what we can do about, the mayor calls it, financial freedom, but really what we can do about economic growth. Like, how do we help families transform out of poverty? How do we really, help them move forward? Because the idea is to change the trajectory of your family and your future. And so, which is why we also push, my office pushes home ownership, because that's building wealth. But building future, so as I said, Victoria Parks and I, and Denise Driehaus, and Joe Mallory, NAACP, Chrissy Cooch from the Urban League, and the building future, the building trades, went to Columbus to see how they do their program. And what they do is they start with this 12-week pre-apprenticeship program, to really give people soft skills. I mean, a lot of folks in the program are people who've been unemployed, or they've experienced homelessness and they're really struggling. And this is, how do you develop skills and then get into a good union job with benefits? A good paid job where you can really change the future, your future, and also your family's future. And so the Urban League agreed to house the program here. Hamilton County, put a lot of money into it. Now the city's putting, which we should have put it in from the beginning, but they're like, well, the county put it in. We're like, okay, when you're ready for us, but now the city's put money in, and during this next budget round, I'm gonna propose that we put more money into it. Each class can, hold about 15 people. And so, and the class costs, I think, about $125,000 per class. And so I would like to see that. And so would a lot of other folks, to see us do more of these classes. So instead of doing 1 a year, 2 a year, we can do 8 a year. Let's get more people in it and really, really change the future of families. So those are things that are happening, and open for questions.
Why don't we stop the share then?
Oh, okay. Okay, Al Schneider. You also asked me, I should say it once, Bill Woods, also asked me to speak about some of the federal things that are happening. One big issue has been the sanctuary, and I'll just briefly comment on that, the sanctuary city issue. We are a sanctuary city. It means we don't use our local resources to check the IDs for immigrants, and to arrest undocumented immigrants, all this kind of stuff. And actually, a lot of undocumented immigrants, they're not necessarily illegal. It's legal to come and seek asylum in our country, and so it's not illegal just because you don't have documents. But at any rate, and so the federal government has said that sanctuary cities are at risk of losing federal dollars. I don't know what we're going to do. We haven't really made a decision. They haven't attacked us, saying, okay, now we're gonna come after you. We've just kind of stepped back out of it. And what we've tried to do is make sure that our immigrant community has resources that they need. So we had a Healthy Neighborhoods Committee about 2 weeks ago, where the immigrant and refugee law center, I juxtapose the words, the immigrant, refugee and law center talked about know your rights. And this is something they have in lots of different languages. What to do and how to call them. If you need an attorney, call them. If you get arrested, you don't talk, you definitely don't sign anything. And so that kind of thing. They also, legal aid and other groups, Catholic Charities, have these packets that we've tried to send out. We've tried to send out to the different community councils so that they have them in their neighborhoods. And it's really kind of shocking, but things like guardianship, like suppose you get arrested, what's going to happen with your children? You don't want them to go into, the public system. You want to have, a family member or friend who can care for them in case that happens. Which is sad to even say. You have to think about that. But the thing is to be prepared. And so, we've told people don't panic. We've got resources here to help. And so there are lots of organizations that are out there. Ignite Peace is another one. As I said, Catholic Charities, Sukasa, there's lots of groups, and the city. And so they're to help, and so we want people to know, don't panic if you have a fear about something, or, you're afraid, make sure you call us, so we can find out, what kind of help we can get for you. Also, you don't have to if ICE shows up at your house, or your car or whatever, they have to have a warrant signed by the federal court. They can't just say, we're ICE, we're coming in, you have to let us in. It's like they're not allowed to do that. And so, we just want people to know that we are, we're definitely here for them, and we don't, and, that there's a community here of support. I think, my personal opinion is that, we should not be bullied. That, we have to stand firm and we have to protect our own, because, our immigrants are part of our community, a really important part of our community, as all our residents are. And so that's, really where we are. And, now, can people hear Ed, or does he need to be at a microphone?
No,
Okay, okay.
I'll be loud.
Okay.
I'm wondering if there's anyone at the city looking at the potential impact of some of the federal decisions, whether it's closing the tech building or cutting employees at IRS and EPA, both of which are major employers in our city.
Yeah.
Or research grants for children or university hospital or other places. It's gonna be hard to chase those things down, but shouldn't we be looking at it somehow?
Right, yeah, I think, and so, I don't know about a coordinated effort, but a lot of people are looking at that. Everybody's kind of keeping their finger on the pulse about what's going on. I have, a former intern who just lost his job at the EPA twice. The first, so he, really super smart, doing really well, working on this special AI project, but because he was still on probation, his probationary period would have been over in May, and the federal government said, probationary employees have to go. First it was non-conforming, then it was like all of them. And so, he was let go, and then they called him back and said, we didn't let go like our 300 probationary employees correctly, so come on back. So he went back, and 24 hours later, they're like, oh no, now we're just gonna let everybody go. So, what an emotional roller coaster. You've got a family, you've got your life there, so you lose your job all of a sudden, based on, it's really ridiculous.
Right, but from a city standpoint, we've got thousands of well-paid employees
Yeah.
who aren't gonna be paying earnings tax now.
Right, yeah, that's right, we're gonna lose earnings tax for sure. It's really difficult. We also have a lot of federal money that comes into the city. And so, so there's a lot, so it's kind of an ongoing, it's an ongoing discussion. We're not, the administration has said, and the leadership has said, we're not violating any laws, but we are not required by law to have our local officials, for example, our local police, arrest people for the federal government or check their IDs. We're not required by law to do that, and so we're not doing that. We're not doing that. So our police are here to protect everybody here. Yes, Bill.
It sounds like you all are trying to work with a lot of the neighborhood groups that are working on these things. Like we had this forum about a month ago with Pride about, what they were doing with the immigrant issue.
Yeah.
And they had built quite a coalition, so that I think there's a lot of, and then you're doing the same thing with gun violence.
Right.
So that's very exciting.
Yeah, and I think, and maybe this isn't new, but it's really important that everyone's not out working in silos. And we have found that sometimes you see that going on when there's certain issues that have to be addressed. For example, you saw the coalition of different groups addressing homelessness, what to do about it, as opposed to everybody being on their own. Let's get together because we're stronger together, right? That's our city motto. Same with gun violence. There are a lot of different groups working on it. And so, you pull some together and you hear about other forums. Charmaine McGuffey has a meeting every other Tuesday at Clifton Rec Center. at the Cincinnati Rec Center in Clifton, not to be confuse that with the Clifton Cultural Arts Center. So this is at the Rec Center in Clifton. It's every other Tuesday at 7 p.m. It's only for an hour generally, and people come together and talk about, what they're doing. So that's really important. And the same with the immigrant, issues that concerns that have to be addressed, groups coming together, like the Immigrant and Refugee Law Center, Catholic Charities, as I said, Sukasa Legal Aid coming together to see how do we combine resources and forces. And so I love that because that's how we really create success. Okay, I don't know if there are any questions online. I see my friend from high school, Veronica McQuarrie. Hey, Veronica. So, Steve Gibbs out there in Mount Auburn. I put on my glasses so I can see William Joyner's there. Does anybody have any questions before we close up? City Council is going to start in a few minutes. Okay, I see. Let me just look at the chat real quickly before I say goodbye. Oh, okay, I see Dan Zavon, Susan Noonan. Oh, okay, thanks guys, thanks for coming. Matt Strauss, and Matt was at Making Connected Communities Better. We didn't get to talk, but Matt, thank you so much for being there and for all your work.
Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you. Okay, well, now I'm seeing myself on the screen. It's like, it looks like I'm hiding behind the facade. I do that.
You're upset.
Okay, all right. So here I am. Okay, well, listen, everybody, thank you so much. Make sure that Alice Schneider, Bill Woods, Ed Burdell, make sure they have your email address. And I'll send to you this information. I'm gonna send the Making Connected Communities Better PowerPoint so that you can take a look. It's about, I think, 26 pages, isn't it, Tara? Yeah.
And it'll be on our website too. I'll put it.
Oh, it'll be on the website too, okay. And then I'll try to look for that. There's one slide that's really good that shows the area median income, incomes, what they are, and kind of a sampling of jobs that go with them. So it just makes it a little clearer. Sometimes people go, oh, what's all this AMI stuff? What does that mean? If you're making, 30,000 a year, family of four, what kind of job, might you have, or, that kind of thing. So that really helps a lot. So, I'd say if you're at 80%, if you're a city council person, we're at 80% AMI. So that's where we are. So just so you know. All right. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate being here. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Alice.
thank you,
Thank you all
Michelle.
for being here. Thank
Jane.
you.
If you're a council.
Thanks, Jan Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle. Wonderful, very informative.
Oh, thank you. City council starts public comment at 1:30. And I'm actually presiding today. The mayor is out of town, so I better get
better
my
get up
time.
there.
So, all right, thank you. Thanks for coming. Appreciate you all.
Thank you. That's
Oh, thank you. A lot going on.
Yeah.
County.
Summarize.
County.